My name is Rachel Morgan. I've spent the last 12 years building a life far away from the people who once called themselves my family. From the outside, my life looks like something out of a glossy magazine, a corner office overlooking downtown Chicago, a wardrobe lined with silk blouses and tailored suits, my name etched in polished glass on the door of my firm. People see success, poise, independence. What they don't see is how much of it was born from pain. This morning was like any other, coffee steaming on my desk, the faint buzz of the city below, my fingers skimming across a stack of contracts waiting for review. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the silk of my blouse brushing my skin, a small reminder of the woman I had become. I thought I had buried the past, sealed it behind a locked door in my heart. But then my phone lit up. One glance at the name flashing across the screen froze me. My cousin, Claire. Someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. My throat tightened as I answered, my voice cooler than I felt. "Rachel," she began hesitantly, "I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. Your dad, he doesn't have much time. He wants to see you." The words sank like stones in my chest. My father, the man I had walked away from, the man who had driven me out of my own home. Suddenly, the walls of my office felt smaller, my polished life colliding with a past I had tried to forget. I stared at the skyline, my reflection faint in the glass, and whispered to myself, why now? After all these years, why now? 12 years ago, I was 19 and desperate to be heard. Back then, home was a modest two-story house in Ohio, where the air always smelled faintly of fried onions and my mother's perfume. It should have felt warm and safe, but instead, it felt suffocating. I still remember the night it all unraveled. My father had just come home from work, shoulders tense, his brow heavy with unspoken judgment. I was at the kitchen table, clutching my college acceptance letter like it was a ticket to freedom. "Dad, I got in," I said, my voice trembling with equal parts pride and fear. "It's a full scholarship. New York. I leave in August." His reaction wasn't joy. It was fury. He slammed his hand against the counter, the sound making my little brother flinch from across the room. "New York," he barked. "That's not for people like us. You think you're better than this family? Better than me?" The words cut deeper than I let him see. I had dreamed of studying journalism, of writing stories that mattered. But to him, my dreams were betrayal. My mother stood silently, wringing her hands, eyes darting between us, but never landing on me. She never defended me, not once. My brother muttered something about me being too high and mighty, and my father's glare sealed my fate. That night, after hours of shouting, after being called selfish, ungrateful, even disgraceful, I made my choice. I packed a small suitcase with shaking hands, tears streaking my face, and slipped out of the house before dawn. Before I left, my grandmother, quiet, steady, always watching, met me at the back door. She pressed something small into my palm, a silver locket, worn smooth from years of being held. "Rachel," she whispered, her voice raspy but firm, "don't let them tell you who you are. This world is bigger than their fear. Go make it yours." I clutched that locket so tightly I thought it might leave an imprint on my skin. Her words became the flame I carried into the darkness. As the bus pulled away from the town I thought would be my whole life, I stared out the window, my heart breaking and rebuilding all at once. I didn't know how I would survive, but I knew one thing for certain. I would never go back. New York was nothing like Ohio. The city felt alive, loud, relentless, and indifferent to whether I succeeded or failed. At first, it swallowed me whole. I worked nights at a diner, wiping down sticky counters and carrying trays heavier than my arms could handle, all while dragging myself to early morning lectures with eyes burning from lack of sleep. But I kept going. I had to. Every time doubt crept in, I'd open my hand and feel the cool surface of my grandmother's locket. Her words echoed like armor. "This world is bigger than their fear." Sophomore year, I met someone who changed everything, Professor Elaine Whitmore. She was the kind of woman who filled a room without trying, sharp but compassionate, with eyes that seemed to see straight through excuses. One afternoon, after I nervously turned in a feature article about the hidden lives of immigrant women working overnight shifts, she pulled me aside. "Rachel," she said, tapping the paper with her pen, "you have a voice people will want to hear. Don't waste it apologizing for existing. Tell the stories only you can tell." Her faith in me was oxygen. She introduced me to editors, pushed my work into small but respected publications. I stumbled plenty, missed deadlines, rewrites that gutted me, but each rejection toughened my skin. And when the first check for my article arrived, even if it was barely enough for groceries, I taped a copy of it above my bed. Proof that I could earn something that was mine. After graduation, I freelanced nonstop, hustling for bylines, chasing leads, surviving on coffee and sheer determination. Slowly, doors opened. A nonprofit offered me a contract to document women's stories across the Midwest. A year later, a national magazine gave me my first big feature. I learned the art of negotiation, the sting of being underestimated, the quiet power of proving them wrong. Some nights, I'd cry in exhaustion, staring at the city lights through my tiny apartment window, whispering to myself that one day it would all make sense. And it did. By my late 20s, I wasn't just writing, I was running my own digital media company. It started as a blog, just me and a laptop, and grew into a platform with millions of readers, dozens of employees, and global partnerships. I made investments, launched initiatives, and eventually moved into a glass-walled office overlooking Chicago, far from the girl who had once fled Ohio with nothing but a suitcase and a locket. But through it all, I stayed silent about my family. On social media, I posted vague updates, photos of coffee cups, cityscapes, books stacked by my bedside. Never my office, never my home, never the full truth. Part of me didn't want them to find me. Another part wanted them to wonder. 12 years passed in a blur of deadlines, awards, and milestones. I built an empire from the ashes they left me in. Yet, whenever I opened that locket, I was still the girl at the bus window, longing, hurting, and stronger than anyone had expected. And now, with one phone call, that carefully hidden life was about to collide with the past I had buried. 2 weeks later, I found myself standing in the lobby of my own building, watching as the people I hadn't seen in 12 years walked hesitantly through the revolving glass doors. My company's name, Morgan Media Group, was etched in silver letters behind me, but they didn't notice at first. They were too busy staring upward, their eyes widening at the 20-foot ceilings, the polished marble, the artwork lining the walls. My mother looked smaller than I remembered, her hair more gray than chestnut. My brother Daniel, taller now, carried the same swagger in his walk, though the lines around his eyes betrayed the years. And behind them, my cousin Claire, the messenger, looked nervous, her fingers twisting around the strap of her purse. They had come expecting the struggling runaway, the girl who left in disgrace. Instead, they were stepping into my world. "Rachel?" My mother's voice broke as she finally spotted me by the reception desk. I offered a polite smile. Nothing more. "Follow me." The silence was thick as I led them past rows of sleek glass offices, through a space buzzing with young editors and designers tapping away at laptops. A few of my staff glanced up with curiosity. They rarely saw me escorting guests personally. When we reached my office, I opened the double doors. Their footsteps slowed as they entered. Floor-to-ceiling windows poured in sunlight, casting reflections across shelves lined with awards, framed magazine covers, and photographs of me with leaders, artists, and women whose stories had defined the last decade of my career. A modern painting, a gift from one of my first big clients, hung behind my desk, bold and unflinching. My brother's jaw tightened. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. This is yours?" she whispered. I walked to my desk, running a hand lightly across its glass surface. "Yes." Every square inch. For a moment, none of them spoke. I let the silence stretch, let them drink in every detail. The power shift was palpable. The girl who had left with a single suitcase now sat at the head of an empire. Finally, Daniel muttered, "We thought you were just writing articles." barely making it. A short laugh escaped me, soft, but edged with irony. That's what you wanted to believe, isn't it? That I would fail. That I'd come crawling back. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We didn't know, Rachel. I cut her off, my voice calm but unyielding. You didn't want to know. You slammed the door before I could even try. You told me my dreams were selfish, that leaving was betrayal. So I left. And I built this. I gestured around the office, the city's skyline gleaming behind me like a crown I had earned. Claire finally spoke up, her tone timid. Your dad, he really doesn't have much time. He asked for you. That's why we're here. The name was a sharp blade, slicing through the room. My father. The man who had told me I'd never make it, who had thrown my scholarship letter into the trash as though it were worthless. He was the reason I had walked away, the reason I had been forced to choose between their acceptance and my future. I sat slowly in my chair, folding my hands on the desk. And now, I said evenly, you're here because he wants something from me. Not because you're proud of me. Not because you finally see me. But because time is running out. Their silence was answer enough. I leaned back, meeting each of their eyes in turn. You wanted to know who I've become? Look around. This is who I am. And the girl you pushed out? She's not coming back. The weight of my words settled heavily over the room. For the first time, I saw it clearly in their faces: shame, disbelief, guilt, and a flicker of awe they couldn't hide. For a long moment, the only sound in my office was the muted hum of the city beyond the glass. I could see my mother's lips trembling, Daniel shifting uncomfortably, and Claire staring at the floor as if it might swallow her whole. Finally, I broke the silence. So tell me, why now? Why, after 12 years of silence? Daniel cleared his throat. Because Dad, he doesn't have long. And the hospital bills. I raised my hand, cutting him off. There it is. The truth. Money. My words weren't cruel, just matter of fact. And in that moment, the power dynamic shifted completely. They had come expecting me to plead for their acceptance. Instead, they were the ones pleading. I stood, walking slowly toward the window, letting the light catch the silver locket resting beneath my blouse. I touched it briefly, grounding myself, then turned back to face them. You want my help? I said evenly. Fine. But here's how this is going to work. Their heads lifted, hope flickering in their eyes. First, I continued, locking eyes with my brother. Daniel, you always mocked me for dreaming too big. You fed off Dad's approval and tore me down to feel taller. If you want me to help, you're going to confront that. No more arrogance. No more excuses. Go back to school. Finish the degree you dropped out of. Show me you can build something without tearing someone else apart. He blinked, stunned. For once, he didn't have a snide remark. I shifted my gaze to my mother. Her tears had streaked lines down her face, but I didn't soften. Mom. You stood there in silence while Dad destroyed me. You let his voice drown out mine. If you want my help, you need to find your own. Stop living for appearances. Stop choosing comfort over truth. Start counseling. Stand up for yourself. For once, stand up for me. Her chin quivered, and she nodded faintly, as though a lifetime of weight was pressing down on her. Finally, I looked at Claire. She wasn't the worst, but she had carried the family's message like a dutiful courier. Claire, you always played neutral. Safe. But neutrality is complicity. If you want me to consider your request, you need to stop being the messenger and start being the change. Speak up. Tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The three of them sat in stunned silence, absorbing my conditions. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't cruel. I was clear. And that clarity had more force than any anger ever could. I'll cover Dad's hospital bills, I said at last. But money isn't free. This isn't charity. These are terms. If you agree, then maybe there's a chance, not for the past to be erased, but for something new to begin. If you don't, I shrugged lightly, letting the implication hang in the air. Then you'll have to figure it out without me. The weight of choice now lay with them. For the first time in 12 years, I was no longer the powerless daughter. I was the one setting the rules. They sat there for what felt like forever, the silence thick with shock, guilt, and something else, acceptance. Slowly, Daniel nodded, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. You're right. I've been bitter, jealous even. I'll fix it. I'll go back to school. My mother wiped her tears, her hands trembling. Rachel, I should have defended you. I should have protected you. I'll get counseling. I don't want to live in fear anymore. And Claire, sweet, careful Claire, finally lifted her eyes to meet mine. I'll stop hiding behind everyone else's choices. You deserve honesty. They deserve it too. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't see the same family I had left behind. I saw cracks in their armor, the faintest glimmer of change. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was real. But it was something. That night, after they left, I sat alone in my office, the city glittering beyond the glass. I reached for the locket around my neck and opened it. Inside was the tiny photo of my grandmother, her steady smile frozen in time. Her voice echoed in my memory. Don't let them tell you who you are. This world is bigger than their fear. She had been right. Their fear had shaped me, but it hadn't broken me. It had forged me into the woman sitting here now, stronger, sharper, softer in the ways that mattered. I thought about my father, lying in a hospital bed, fragile in ways I'd never seen. Maybe I'd visit. Maybe I wouldn't. Either way, I knew the power no longer belonged to him. It belonged to me. I closed the locket gently, the weight of it familiar against my heart. For years, I had carried it as a reminder of the girl who left. Tonight, it became a symbol of the woman who had arrived. I leaned back in my chair, let out a long breath, and whispered the words I wished my younger self could have heard all those years ago. I am not the girl you tried to silence. I am the woman who rose anyway.